Hello, everybody. Here we go. I think 247, I think, is. And I'm not keeping track. I am keeping track, but not. I don't know. Um, what's up? Hello, Michelle. Nice to see you. He says, how could you explain the 6/8 and how it differentiates from 4/4, and then play the same short tune in both? How about shakes? Oh, about shakes. Difference with the lip trill. How do you do it? Okay, very good. Well, here we go. Um, 6/8 and 4/4 is now. There's two ways to play 6/8. Let's talk about that first. Two ways to play 6/8. If we play 6/8 with 6 beats, and there are, like, for example, a lot of people will play Hello Angela and Derek, Mr. Derek. Um, anyway, so if we play, what's the song? I'm thinking Holy Silent Night. That's what it's called, Silent Night, right? Ba dee da 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 dee da da dee. If we play the reason I mention that song is because it's commonly written in 6/8, right, instead of 3/4. And so in that case, it's like 4/4, except that we're just reading eighth notes instead of quarter notes. Okay. Now, if we, however, have only 2 beats in a measure, but it's written as 6/8, then that's an indication that we are now playing, what do you call it? Compound time. Now, 4/4 is one of the most simple times, um, and that's why they call it common time, but that's not really, about the C. They have the C. What C stands for is common. That's not really a C. That's a half circle. We can talk about that. But anyway, 4/4 is usually played as a simple time signature. 6/8 is played as a compound time signature. So, I like to say that if it's a beer drinking song or a pirate song, it's probably 6/8, right? Um, so I'm gonna make up a beer drinking song. Oh, that sounds like a pirate song. I got them backwards. Okay, do you hear how the beat is divided by 3? 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. Puppy, puppy. So everything that I'm playing is a triplet. Okay, so same thing with the beer drinking song. Ba-dum, ba-da-da-dum. Now that for some reason I'm stuck in pirate mode. I'm having trouble coming up with a beer drinking melody. Anyway, so you get the idea. If the division is 3, then it's a compound time signature, and we're going to play it with that triplet feel. So instead of playing in 4/4. This is going to be in 6/8. You see here the difference? It's almost the same. It's the eighth notes that are different. And some people say that jazz is like 6/8. In fact, there's a brass quintet arranger. There's a brass quintet arranger that writes everything. He writes jazz arrangements for brass quintet, and he writes everything out in 6/8 or 12/8 or whatever. Um, it's actually very difficult to read because you can just put eighth notes and put swing on it, and you've got that. Anyway, um, so that's the biggest difference is this thing between simple time and compound time. Now, like I said, the 6/8 measure can be played as compound, as simple, um, which is that why I played Silent Night for you. Da dee da dum. That's simple because the beat is not a triplet. We can do da dee da dum, da dee da dum. Now it's compound. It's one of the more difficult things to explain. People get very confused when we do that. Okay, let's go on. I hope that. Oh, we're gonna talk about now shakes. So there's a book in the a page in the Arbin book. I'm gonna grab my Arbin book real quick. So for those of you who might accuse me of never using my Arbin book, that's just not true. This is my second Arbin book, and that's how beat up it is. Let me find this page. All right, I had it marked with the cover. Because it's the only page in the Arbin book I use anymore actively, but yes, I spend a lot of time in the Arbin book, or have in the past. Okay, this is page 44 of the traditional, what is this, international version? Oh, Carl Fisher. The page 44 of the Carl Fisher version. All right. Exercise number 22, and also the following exercise. And the idea is to the idea. Now don't get me wrong. This is not a shake. We're doing this as a lip slur exercise. We don't want it to be dirty. Let me say what I said on the comment that the difference between a shake and a lip slur is that the shake is dirty. It's got crud in it. Okay, so we're not gonna do a shake right now, but you have to start somewhere, right? I kind of started too slow because I like to do it where it's that last measure is almost out of control. But yes, if you've never done a shake before, I recommend this page because it starts there and goes up into the upper register. Now, what's the difference between let's say I have a shake on a G, which is if you're writing music, don't write a shake on a G. Okay. Um, actually, I'm just kidding. But we it does come up every once in a while. Everybody knows it's like usually if I have a shake on a G, I'll finger it. Right, I'll do something like that. Um, but don't do that on this exercise. Anyway, so let's say I was going to use that fingering and do a shake on that G. I'm trying to put a little bit of so when we talk about the dirt, that the shake is dirty, there's sound between the two notes. In a clean lip slur, you have this note, that note, this note, that note, and there's nothing between. See that that's a slur. Here's a shake. Okay, so not easy to do on the low notes. Let me take it up. So let's say we have a shake on an E. That's a lip slur. See how that has a different sound. There's like a between the notes. That's what I mean by dirty. Okay. And so yes, this is something that I tell people if they can't do a shake and they need to learn how to do a shake, then start with this page. If you can't do what's on this page, you can't do a shake. Okay. Um now basically the idea is at the end you're moving between the two notes as fast as possible, right? Um and even though, like I said, I'm gonna say it one more time, even though that is not a shake, there's still more to learn after that. There's still more to learn about how to do a shake. But at least that page, by doing it day after day after day. So once again, all let me tell you, when you have an exercise like that, it falls in the music side of your practice, not the exercise side. Okay, it seems like that doesn't work that way. We say exercises go on the exercise side, but when I say it's not an exercise, um, it's a temporary exercise you do for musical benefits, like like in this case we're talking about learning how to do a trill, a shake. I mean, a shake. Um, anyway, I hope that makes sense. Um, hello, Karen. Nice to see you. Hello, Seppo. Nice to see you. Seppo says, "Hi, Master. This time we are here together with the neighboring institutions." Lecture, Mr. Niatula. Okay, wonderful. I love hearing your updates, Seppo. Um, you know, anyway, yeah, I'm just gonna say it. I just love hearing your updates with the kids and what you're doing up there and what's going on, especially knowing because if I remember right, Seppo, you told us that um trumpet is kind of like not a thing. And you seem to be turning that around. In Finland, if I remember right, there aren't a lot of trumpet ensembles in Finland. In fact, I think you gave me the impression that you guys have the only one. I mean, for students anyway. And I'm very excited about that for you. So, and I'll say publicly, thank you for all your updates. Um, Um, so I'm not sure what you're asking, Mr. Lyric. Um, Rosamunda, aka Beer Bear Polka. I don't remember what context that was in. I'm sorry. Um, Karen says I pulled out my old 7C mouthpieces and cleaned them up. The silver seems to be chipping off of the one in the cup. Is that just old age? Um, that's usually wear and tear. But if it's inside the cup, I think that's a little unusual. But I wouldn't worry about it unless it creates a jagged surface inside the cup. It shouldn't affect how it plays. You know, there. Ha! I was about to say that. Angela says, I heard that the 7C mouthpiece slows down the trumpet progression. Um, it's very sad, really. I understand the guys that are against the 7C mouthpiece. I understand the guys who are against it. Um, but they've turned it into a cultural. At first, it was a joke. If it, at first it was a joke. Now they're talking about getting rid of the 7C mouthpiece. I think it's still a joke. I think they're still clowning around. But the way they talk about it, if you're not familiar with their background, I'm not even talking about the background of the 7C. I'm talking about their background. If you're not familiar with their background and you hear them talking about 7C, you would think that the seventh sea, according to them, is a terrible, terrible mouthpiece. So let me ask you. This is how I always approach um, the different size mouthpieces. Let me ask you this: if somebody told you that a size 8 shoe would make you slow down, like you wouldn't be able to run as fast in a size 8 shoe, what would your answer be to that? Right? What would your answer be if someone told you you don't ever wear a size 8 shoe because it will slow you down? What would your response be to that? If you wear a size 8 shoe, you wear it because it fits, not because it's good or bad, not because it has good properties or bad properties. The 7C mouthpiece is just like the 5C mouthpiece, is just a different size. And it is not, it never has been, a one size fits all. Different people have to have different sizes. Sometimes the size that works for somebody, the best size for somebody, is the 7C. And it's actually ludicrous to say that they shouldn't play on a 7C. Now, where did that come from? Where did this animosity towards the 7C come from? Because the 7C is just the mouthpiece that forever was included in the trumpets when you bought them. And my understanding, I don't mind being proven wrong if I am wrong. I like to be proven wrong. My understanding is that the reason Bach would include the 7C in their trumpets is because it was halfway between the extremes. It was the middle of the road. They knew some people would need a bigger mouthpiece. They knew some people would need a smaller mouthpiece. But by doing the 7C, They made it possible for people to start immediately without being sized first. And now a lot of people are so have such animosity towards that mouthpiece size, and it doesn't make let me tell you this: if what they're saying is genuine, if they truly do, and they're not joking around, and they truly do hate the 7C mouthpiece, that's as bad as the band directors that were assigning the 7C in the first place. There's no difference. It's opposite ends of the same problem. Oh, I didn't mention that. A lot of band directors for a long time did just have their students start on a 7C for the same reason, right? For the same reason. It's the middle of the road. You'll find what works better for you later. It's the middle of the road. Now, some people would say, we'll start with a 7C because they're little kids and they've got little mouths and we're going to start on a little mouthpiece. Uh, all of that's not nice. None of that is actually legitimate. Everybody needs a different size. We just don't all have access to a different size. I remember talking to the other Finnish guy that visits us every once in a while, um, uh, Raimo. Raimo has said that they don't have access where he lives to different mouthpieces, that he has to order online and stuff like that. If I remember right. Um, so yeah, a lot of people don't have access to better, different size mouthpieces, and 7C is a safe bet for the middle, especially for the kids. Anyway, so yes, that is a thing. That hatred, that animosity for the 7C is a thing, but it's one of those dogmatic things, right? You hear somebody say something, you trust what they're saying. And when I say trust, what I mean is don't question. And then you adopt it as your dogma that you're going to teach now all these other people. And it's, to me, that's the worst kind of teaching, is the dogma, because it indicates that there's no thought process going on. Okay. Anyway, Angela says, I have a 5C mouthpiece and I have never used any other mouthpieces. I thought about buying a C trumpet because it's just easier than transposing music, but I haven't made up my mind. Um, transposing is not hard. It really isn't. I think it's worth the time spent to do that. It really is worth it, because what it does to your mind changes everything. It's one of those transformational things that we do. I have several students right now that we do a lot of transposition, because of what it does to your mind. Marcel says, "Thank you, welcome." Angela says, "I guess it's a matter of preference when it comes to mouthpieces." That's absolutely correct. Uh, Music is subjective. It's entirely subjective. The only time it's not subjective is when it becomes cultural. When you want to be in a band and the people in the band says, you're not like us, we're not going to take you into our band. That's cultural. That's not right or wrong. They can say, well, we don't like your vibrato. It's not because you don't have the right vibrato. It's because they don't like your vibrato. You could go to a different band and they might say, oh, we love your vibrato. It's subjective. There's no objective right or wrong when it comes to music, until you bring culture into it. I hope that makes sense. So, here's Mr. Derek. I don't know why I'm calling you Mr. Derek and everybody else by their first name. I apologize. It was a suggestion on when you were trying to think of a beer drinking song. Okay, so no, um, that's not the kind of beer drinking song I'm talking about. But you know what? What came to my mind, and I just didn't want to bring it up. You know, there were a bunch of beer songs, bar songs in the 19th century that became hymns. I'm not making this up. There were a bunch of beer songs, beer drinking bar songs, melodies that, because those were the melodies everybody knew, the church at that time said, hey, why don't we have church songs with those melodies? so there's so there's hymns. Um, One of my favorite hymns right now is I'm Healed, right? And it's sounds like a beer drinking song. Ba-dum, ba-ding, ba-da-dum, ba-ding, da-dum, ba-dum, ba-dum, ba-ding, da-da. It sounds like a beer drinking song. For all I know, it could be. So there's a lot of those compound meter songs in the hymns. And if you open up the hymnal, and how do you recognize it? Normally, a hymn that's compound meter is going to have 8 on the bottom and then divisions of 3 on the top. So you can have 6/8, you can have now that doesn't, like I said earlier, that doesn't necessarily mean automatically that it's like that, right? A compound meter. But that's the first thing you're looking for. 6/8, 9/8, and 12/8. Okay, 8 on the bottom and divisions of 3 on the top. All right. So there are some, he says, I'm not sure if the timing is 6/8, but it's a beard song. It's definitely a beer song. That's correct. um, there are some polkas that are in 6/8. That, and they are definitely same thing with the marches, right? There are some 6/8 march. Bum, da, 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 dum. Bum, bum, ba, 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 beep, 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 ba, 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 bee. Bum, ba, 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 beep, 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 ba, 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 ba. Right. Is that Liberty March? I think that's Liberty March. That's also compound. It's 6/8 with 2 beats per measure. Bum, ba, 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 beep, ba, 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 bee. Right. Bum, ba, 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 bum, ba, bum, ba, bum. Right. All right. So where am I? I'm lost. I'm sorry. Karen says, I was looking for a mouthpiece that would give me a little more assistance in the high range. I play lower stuff in the band and higher in another band. Oh, in one band and higher in another band. Um, I I know that it's hard to get access to some of this stuff, but I strongly recommend for stuff like that you have the same size on the outside, but more of a shallow mouthpiece. Okay. And but to go to that, you have to get a uh, custom mouthpiece. In other words, so like this brand that I officially sell. I haven't sold anything this year yet, but now part of the reason I don't sell them is because you can't. I really don't think you can fit somebody virtually. You really have to be there, right? So I only sell really to the people that come to the house. And since almost all my lessons now are online, it's just hard to do that. But yes, we prefer to have the same outer diameter or inner diameter, what am I saying? Same inner diameter and just a shallower cup. That will give you a little bit more oomph in the upper register. It's not genuine. It doesn't change how high you can play. It just changes how easy it is to play high. I hope that makes sense. Seppo says, Mr. Niatula says, we are so happy that we have around 50 trumpet students in the city of Lati now, and the summer break has just started. Hey, that's wonderful. I'm glad to hear that. You're creating, we talk about the culture all the time. You're creating that culture there. You're creating that. You have the ability to take that wherever you want to take it. That's just wonderful. All right, Angela says, I guess the 7C mouthpiece is for big mouths. Just kidding. Actually, when we talk about the 7C, the numbers are backwards, right? So a 1 in the box sizes is the largest size. And 10.5 is one of the smallest sizes. I think they have now smaller sizes than that. Angela says, I'm currently struggling with endurance and high notes, but it's coming along slowly. Yes, be careful. I don't know if you've read my One Range book. Be careful not to push past what you can already play. I have it makes people angry, right? Back when I was participating in all the trumpet forums, I used to tell people that I got my range by never practicing range, never practicing high notes. I got the range I have, never practicing high notes. And it made them angry. And maybe I was a troll, a little bit of a trolling action going there. But it was to make a point. It wasn't just to troll them, it was to help people understand how I approached it. I never practiced, I quit practicing high notes. Even the high note exercises, right? They call them range exercises. And sorry for the tangent, but let's talk about range exercises. Makes no sense to me today. And yet there's still thousands of trumpet players practicing this way. They have their long tones. They have their just like what I teach. There's very little difference between the rudiments that I teach and the rudiments that they teach. Very little difference. Some of them are now doing lead pipe buzzing as part of their routine. I don't do lead pipe buzzing, but it's not really that different from mouthpiece buzzing. I know there are people that would say, yes, it's different, it's different. I don't think so. But I just don't agree. Okay. If I thought it was beneficial, I would be doing it. Okay. And nobody's been able to convince me. Anyway, so that's a tangent. We're talking about doing high note exercises. I lost my thought. Doing high note exercises. These guys teach all the same stuff as I do in terms of the different kinds of rudiments. But then they have what they call range exercises that they include in all that. As if it's a fundamental. Range exercise is nothing more than you trying to play notes you can't play yet. And there's more damage you can do practicing a range exercise than you can imagine. This is where double embouchures come from. What's a double embouchure? I have an embouchure for playing low, I have a different embouchure for playing high. And I'm not suggesting that everybody that does range exercises is going to have that problem, but what I am suggesting is that I don't think there's any benefit to practicing those exercises. I don't think there's any benefit. Once you understand the nature of how the high notes work, there's simply no benefit to playing notes that are higher than what you can play. And since there's no benefit and the potential for damage to your trumpet playing is so high, I do not recommend high note exercises. I do not recommend them. When you understand how high notes work, that it's not physical. The strength involved does not continue. Once you get up to G, you've pretty much got all of the strength you're going to need. So then you'll ask, well, then why is it I can't play high? Because it's not strength. And a lot of the people that have trouble developing their range is because they think it's strength and what they're doing. They think, and this is where the high note exercises come from because they're comparing it to lifting weights. They're comparing it to lifting weights. So if I'm lifting weights and I've been doing 220 pounds, 10 reps of 220 pounds, and I feel like I'm ready to move on. And I add, let's go to 250 now. I don't know. It's been so long since I did weights. I don't know what numbers I'm talking about anymore. But when you go, the best way to increase your strength is to pile it on and go to the heaviest weight that you can lift without dropping the bar. And they use this as a model for how they're going to learn how to play high. There is nothing similar between lifting weights and playing high. There is absolutely no similarity whatsoever in the way you develop it. If you want to understand more about that, read my One Range book. I talk about it. It has to do with, now don't get me wrong, if you're a beginner and you're struggling to get up to E, that's a strength issue. Okay, it's a strength and familiarity issue. But the need for the strength tapers off. I even watched a video yesterday, a guy that had a camera inside a mouthpiece. And he says, look at this phenomenon. Right? He had a student play up a scale up to high C, and then from high C up to super C. And we get to watch the embouchure, the way it vibrates. And predictable as I could have told you before I watched the video, the embouchure has very little change in it between high C and super C. Very little. In fact, they said to the naked eye, there's no change whatsoever. When you're watching the video, there's no visible change. I could have told you that before I watched the video. Okay? As you go higher, the need for strength tapers off. Okay? So if you are practicing, I don't know how I got off on this. It is a tangent, but it's one of the most important things that we talk about in the context of our physical development. And people get frustrated. And most of that frustration is because they think it's physical. They want to make themselves play high, and it doesn't work like that. The high notes come from here, only from here, and from the subconscious part of your mind. You can't make yourself play high. If Now I know that there's teachers out there that say do this, this, and this, and you'll have a super C. Um, and it can work. It can work if you do that to get a super C. You won't be able to play that in music, but you might be able to squeak out a super C if you do what they say. But you won't be able to play high notes. And see what I'm saying about playing high note exercises is that the high note exercises have the potential to screw you up so badly that you'll never get high notes. The worst of those screw ups is when you have two different embouchures, one for the low notes, one for the high notes. That's the worst case scenario, but it's not just that. There's also things that can go wrong in here too. Among other things, there's people that twist their horn to get the high notes. They they're playing, and to play high, they go, "Poof." They turn the horn like that. That's the kind of bad habit playing high note exercise will lead to. It's not worth it. Ha! And I didn't get to the next comment yet, right? I had to back off on putting so much pressure to create a high note because it was really tiring me out. So this is what I'm talking about. Pressure is one of those things. Now we all use more pressure when we play high. It has to do with sealing the hole. If you don't seal the hole, then air comes out the side. So you have to use more pressure. But if you're using pressure to get the high notes, that's the something different I was talking about. If you play notes that are higher than you can play, and you're using pressure to get those notes, that's not how you play trumpet, and that's not going to help you. There's no benefit to that. There is no benefit to that. Kevin uh, said to me that he reminded me yesterday in our lesson that I asked you guys to go 6 weeks without worrying about your range. I hope some of you took me up on that. If you haven't done that, if you're not started with that, I want to ask you to start now. Go 6 weeks. Do an experiment and get all of the idea of trying to increase your range out of your head. Be satisfied with what you already have. Now, let me be clear though. This challenge, let's call it a challenge. This trumpet challenge does not apply to people who don't practice my method. Okay? Keep in mind that this is not for everybody. This challenge is not for everybody. Because in my method, you do go to the top of your current range on almost everything. So that's the difference. You go up as high as you can for what you've got now. And you do that twice a week. Now, one difference between my students and other students is that my students are supposed to have a keen understanding of where their range is right now. My students are supposed to have, because otherwise, which book do you do? Which of the books do you do if you don't know what your range is? So in order to use my books, you have to know what your range is. And you don't go past that. And anyway, so in this challenge, I should make a video about this too. This 6-week challenge of not worrying about range at all only applies to those people who are exploring the range they already have on a regular basis. If you don't do that, then the 6-week challenge probably won't help you much. Okay, so I do have to be careful when I say stuff like that. Um, Angela says, I agree with you, Eddie, about transposing. I know how to do it, and it's not so bad. Okay, there you go. That's a good thing. Seppo says transposing should be a basic skill for a trumpet player. I agree. I agree. Karen says, I find that my control in the high range is a struggle. I just want to be able to play consistently up to high C with control. Um, you'll get that control. The control comes slowly as you spend more time playing up there. None of what I teach is supposed to be fast. None of it. It's not. I don't teach quick fix. I don't teach shortcuts. Um, and I think you should be aware of the people who do, because there really are no shortcuts to what we do. There are none. And the people who want to sell you that are selling it to you because that's what you want. I'm sorry to say it, but that's really what it comes down to. You know, I've had plenty of students that didn't come to take with me because I don't offer the shortcut. Um, and I don't have a problem with that. I will not, whether it's the books or the sheet music or these videos or um, the lessons, I will not offer shortcuts because I think they are damaging to your trumpet playing. I will not offer shortcuts. You know what? How many times have I had to clean up the mess that the shortcut teachers made? How many times have I had to clean up the mess? You know, I understand that a lot of times the people who come to me, it's their last chance. They've gone to all these other teachers, and now it's their last chance to try to get this right. And a lot of times they're desperate because they've had so many teachers try to show them the shortcuts. And it did such lasting damage. You know, sometimes I see a student like that, and I don't mind working with them. I don't, and they make progress. Don't get me wrong, they make progress. But the progress is so much slower than the ones that never got damaged that way. Because they have to, they're not just learning how to play the trumpet. They're not just learning how to play the trumpet. They are having to undo damage that was done to their trumpet playing over a period of years. And where is that damage? It's not in their fingers, it's not in your lips. That damage isn't in your tongue. That damage isn't in your jaw. That damage is in your mind. Those shortcuts mess up so badly how you think about trumpet playing, about what. And we can put range exercises into that. Why do people do range exercises? They're impatient. They want the range now. So they do stuff like that. So we can put officially, since it relates to what we're talking about now, you can put the range exercises in this same category. That's what this is, a shortcut. So no, I won't be part of that. I know if I did, I could get people to spend a lot of money. That's the thing about me, and I know I've told you guys this before. I've studied a lot of marketing. I've studied a lot of sales. Um, and 99% of it I refuse to do. I consider most of it to be evil. I really do. And um, in the trumpet world, that's what those exercises are. Here, you've got a range exercise. Some people sell a whole book of range exercises, and it's going to make you play higher. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that those books never work. I'm not saying that. Every once in a while, you will find something that does work for you. It's sort of like winning the lottery. Okay? Every once in a while. So, whatever that book teaches, if that was the one thing keeping you from getting in the range, and then you do that book, there is an opportunity for progress. So that's why I don't say that everybody that practices range exercises is going to have this problem. I'm not saying that. So the worst case scenario, you end up screwing with your head and screwing up with your embouchure and stuff like that. Middle of the road problem is uh, it just delays how long it takes you to get your range. Um, Best case scenario, it just happened to be what you needed. So that's why I don't tell people don't don't experiment with this stuff. I don't ever say that. You guys know that. Um, I'm not like that. And it's not just because people have said that about me. Don't do Eddie's stuff because he's online. There used to be a time when if you were online, then what you did was not real, right? It's funny for me, right? I've been teaching online. My first website was in 1993, I think. I've been helping people online all these years. And so the people who are not online are getting online now, after all these decades, right? The people who were bad mouthing people like me for teaching online, for sharing my stuff online, the people who used to badmouth me now have their own channels. But let me tell you this, I watch all of it. I go to every single one of those channels and I check out what they have to say. I check them all out. You don't have to do that. Um, but don't be afraid to see stuff. Don't be afraid to experiment with stuff. If it helps, it helps. That's how we get to where we want to go is you absorb everything that's pertinent for you to observe, right? So anyway, yes, we don't do shortcuts. Not in my world. Um, Angela says, I discovered that you can't use a lot of pressure for high notes. It was actually derailing my progress. That's correct. I had pushed so hard that my mouthpiece got stuck inside of my trumpet. I've seen that many, many times. Uh-huh. I had a student's father that one time told me his son was using the Armstrong method. He didn't want him to use the Armstrong method. What is the Armstrong method? Strong arming your mouthpiece into your face. All right. Kevin says, Mr. Lewis knows my story, but for everyone else, I literally damaged my lip muscle using too much pressure. I stopped playing for many years. It's a serious risk if you use pressure to hit notes. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that, Kevin. Um, Seppo says, we just got to know that we are about to have a trumpet camp at 11 to 12 October in Sisma. I don't know how to say Finnish words, sorry. Formed by the trumpet students of Lahti in Finland. Very nice. Very nice. That brings a smile to my face. I love to hear about that. Now, don't get me wrong, right? I don't think what let me try to be clear about what excites me about all of that. It's not just because I play trumpet. Don't get me wrong. But you're you're doing what I recommend so many people. There's you guys know that I think students should play in ensembles. You guys know that, right? There's something you get from playing with other people. But if you live someplace where there are no ensembles, that there's no access to that, you can just have music with the people you do have access to. Don't, in other words, so what I'm saying is if you don't have access, create access. And this is what you're doing. So I've had so many students say, oh, there's no bands for me to play in. Start a band. And this is one of the reasons why I write so many duets. Your band could just be you and another trumpet player. I have a student that used to take with me in Colorado Springs. He finds out that there's a trumpet player just across the street, an old retired trumpet player, and and they practice out of the latest hymn book that I just wrote. That can be the ensemble that you're playing with. You guys have seen my videos with me and just the bass player. It doesn't have to be bass. It could be you and a piano. It could be you and an accordion, you and a banjo, you and a trombone player. Speaking of trombone and trumpet, when I went to Europe the first time, there was a trumpet player and a trombone player that had all the Bugs Bauer duets memorized, and they were busking in Paris. On the streets in Paris, they're out there, and their objective was to busk for enough money to get their flight home. Huh? They went a one-way flight, and they flew over. They started busking right away, living in a hostel, and started busking. And the money that they made from busking would pay for the hostel and the food, and then they're going to save up enough to get themselves back to the United States. Trumpet and trombone duet. So the ensembles that we play don't have to be the standard ensembles that everybody does, right? You don't, you know, I have a brass trio. I mean, where do you get brass trio, right? Well, it makes it easier to sell the ensemble. I hope that makes sense. So yes, that's what I'm trying to say about Seppo and what's going on in Finland right now is that um, he's creating something like that. And it's not just benefiting him, it's benefiting his students and it's benefiting the community. There's nothing I can think that would be negative about that. He sent me a video. It looks like a museum of some sort. Um, but they're playing uh, the Transformers, the music from the Transformers that he arranged for the ensemble. And I love any of you that want to send me videos, I watch them. Sometimes I don't have as much time to watch as I normally do. Um, but I'll watch. And the way I do the watching of the videos is and this is how it is now. It didn't used to be this way because I didn't have dialysis. When I'm in that dialysis chair, and so I don't know if I told you this already. I work when I'm there. I get stuff done. And that's when I do my emails now. So if I feel like I'm getting tired from all that brain work, right? I will now um, sit and play one of your videos and just close my eyes. It's a video, right? Closing my eyes. Um, I close my eyes and listen to what you're doing. I have a student that very talented, very talented high school student, but he can't. And I won't name names because I don't want to embarrass him. If he, I don't know if he would be embarrassed, but he can't afford lessons. So I told him, as an alternative, what we can do is what I call email lessons, and he can send me assignments, and I can tell him what to fix, what to change, and then I'll send him back more assignments. Um, and yes, so I was when I listen to his assignments, I'll sit there and I'm officially resting, right? But I'll sit and listen to what he's doing. And this last improvisation he sent me, um, wow. I think he's a freshman in high school. Uh, he's got 3 more years of high school to go. And his improvisation on the creative side, there's creativity that we need, and we need control too. And we're going to talk about that in his lesson about how to practice getting more control. But his creativity stuff is off the chart. I don't think I've ever had a student as creative as he is at this stage of the game in terms of the improvisation. It's just wow. Um anyway, I know I went over. Jeffrey says, hello Jeffrey. Jeffrey says shortcuts are a quick sale. I put I put trumpet shortcuts in the same category as um, sex manuals, um, get rich quick manuals. I put them all together. It's it's a way for people to make money off of your desperation. I'm not, and um, just like with the range exercises, right? I'm not suggesting that you can't get anything out of a get rich quick book. I'm not suggesting that you can't get anything out of a sex manual, right? Um, Just keep in mind that's what's going on. They're preying on your insecurities, on your desperation, on your fears. They're manipulating you to give them money. And we have just as much of that in the trumpet world as there is outside of the trumpet world. You know, it used to be in history, right, that price tags were not a thing, that everything was negotiated. And I think when we went to this more, all the prices are the same model, it ruined us in terms of being careful, learning how to watch out for the advertisement. You know, what I grew up with uh hassling, what is that, haggling? Is that what they call it? Haggling? Um, in El Paso. My dad was good at it. Of course, a good a good seller can make you feel like you just got a great deal, right? I remember I went to Juarez um, with my ex mother-in-law, and she spoke Spanish, but she didn't look like she spoke Spanish. And she comes up to me and she says, "The woman just said, don't go any lower than this much." So that's how much I asked. Anyway, but yes, they have a way. But you know, you when you live in that, when you live in that environment that says everybody's out to get you, and that's just part of life. Like, right? Caveat emptum, is that what it is? Buyer beware. Buyer beware. That's what that comes from. Back in the time before there were price tags. Now, instead of having horse traders, we've got commercial media giving us advertisements. Anyway, I gotta go. Angela says, I just practiced and it's getting better as I am discovering my technique. There you go. That's a great way to put it. Discovering your technique. I am glad that I didn't break my crown. There you go. All right, guys. Thank you for hanging out with us. We will see you next time. I do have gigs coming up, so I don't know what kind of schedule we'll have coming up for the summer. We will try to get as many Q and A's in as we can. Okay. All right. Thank you all. See you next time. God bless you. Have a great weekend.